Do you remember those Christmas traditions that made the 1980s holidays feel brighter than any tree light could? In homes across America, these rituals, big and small, turned December into a season of laughter, music, and togetherness. When did we stop celebrating the way that made us feel so alive? Sears and J.C. Penney Christmas wish books were the beating heart of childhood in the 1980s. Each fall, thick catalogs arrived in mailboxes like magical portals, bursting with pages of toys, gadgets, and games that seemed to stretch forever. Kids would lie belly down on shag carpets, red markers in hand, circling everything their hearts desired. It was more than shopping. It was dreaming in color. Parents might not have had much, but that book let every child believe that anything could appear under the tree. The glossy pages smelled faintly of ink and paper, a scent that meant Christmas had officially begun. Siblings would argue over pages, each secretly hoping Santa, or maybe Mom and Dad, noticed the circles they made the biggest. Even when the toys never came, flipping those pages felt like owning them for a moment. Every living room had one copy by the coffee table, its corners worn from weeks of use. Long before online wish lists, this was how magic was imagined, with pen, paper, and hope. Sears and J.C. Penney might have been stores, but to every child who opened that book, they were gateways to wonder. Polaroid photos with mall Santas were the crown jewel of holiday outings. Whole families bundled into cars, clutching coats and candy canes, heading to the mall just to meet the man in red. The wait in line felt endless. Kids fidgeted, tugged at sweaters, and peeked around corners to catch a glimpse of Santa's glittering chair. Then came the moment. A quick smile, a cottony beard, and a Polaroid that developed right before your eyes. You could watch the picture fade into life, a little square of proof that you had been good that year. Parents framed them, stuck them on refrigerators, or tucked them into wallets to show coworkers. The photos were grainy, slightly off-center, but perfect in the way only memories could be. The lights glowed too bright, the fake snow glittered, and for a few minutes the mall felt like the North Pole. Those Polaroids captured more than just smiles. They froze time, preserving a world before smartphones and digital filters. Every blurry photo still carries the warmth of that moment when Christmas felt real enough to hold. Claymation and stop-motion Christmas specials were the heartbeat of December television. Families gathered around boxy living room sets, the glow of Rudolph's red nose flickering on tinsel-covered walls. Every year, without fail, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is coming to town would play, their handmade magic never fading. The jerky movements, the tiny sets, the soft glow of old film, they had a kind of warmth that modern animation can never replicate. Children memorized the songs, parents hummed along, and everyone laughed at the same jokes year after year. The stop-motion figures weren't just characters, they were friends who returned faithfully every Christmas. Commercial breaks were part of the ritual, a chance to grab Coco before returning to the story. The snow never melted on screen, and the world outside seemed to slow down for a little while. When the credits rolled, you knew the season had officially begun. Even now, decades later, those clay figures live on, not just in reruns, but in the hearts of anyone who ever sat cross-legged in their pajamas, waiting for the next song to play. Cabbage Patch Kid Christmas Frenzy was pure, delightful chaos. In 1983, these chubby-cheeked dolls turned parents into warriors on the front lines of toy aisles. Stores sold out in hours, and news channels ran footage of adults wrestling for boxes wrapped in pastel plastic. To own one was to win Christmas itself. Mothers woke up before dawn, waiting in cold lines outside department stores, clutching coffee and hope. Fathers searched town to town, sometimes returning empty-handed. Kids didn't just want a toy. They wanted the doll that came with a name, a birth certificate, and a tiny heartbeat of belonging. It wasn't just a craze. It was love, mass-produced and fought for. Some parents still laugh about it, others still shudder, but everyone remembers the madness. Those dolls, with their yarn hair and button noses, captured something deeper than marketing. They embodied the power of giving, and the joy of seeing a child's eyes light up on Christmas morning. Christmas albums by pop icons filled living rooms with velvet voices and vinyl crackle. The Carpenters, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, each record spun with that soft hiss that made every song feel alive. Silent Night sounded sweeter when it came from a record player's hum. Families would let the needle drop while trimming trees or wrapping gifts, the whole room moving to a rhythm both joyful and gentle. Those albums didn't just play music, they shaped the mood of the season. You could hear the heart of a decade in those harmonies, a blend of pop, soul, and pure Christmas sincerity. The covers were glossy, often showing the artists wrapped in scarves and snowflakes, smiling like old friends. No playlist can ever recreate the ritual of flipping a record, hearing the pop before the song began. For many, these albums were the soundtrack of growing up, warm, hopeful, and perfectly imperfect. Animated store window displays turned downtown shopping into a holiday pilgrimage. Before malls took over, families would bundle up, drive to the city, and press their faces against frosted glass to watch moving elves, trains, and glowing reindeer come to life. Each window told a story: miniature Santa's workshops or cozy living rooms filled with gifts and laughter. Parents hoisted kids onto their shoulders so they could see over the crowd, mittens fogging the glass as everyone gasped in unison. The mechanical whir of tiny motors mixed with carols drifting from hidden speakers. For a few fleeting minutes, everyone outside the glass felt part of the magic inside it. Children would gasp as mechanical snowflakes fell and toy soldiers marched in endless loops. It was theater for the streets, free magic in the middle of winter. The air outside smelled of roasted chestnuts and snow, and carolers often sang nearby. For a few weeks every December, ordinary storefronts became wonderlands, each one competing to outshine the next. The reflections of lights in the windows made the whole city shimmer. It didn't matter if your shoes were wet or your hands were cold. The magic reached you anyway. When you left, the images followed you in the glass of every passing window, as if the spirit refused to fade. When night fell, the lights glimmered like dreams made real. Even today, people remember those window displays not as shopping experiences, but as memories of joy, wonder, and imagination bigger than the glass that held them. Aluminum and tinsel Christmas trees brought futuristic shimmer to 1980s living rooms. Forget pine needles and sap. These trees were pure spectacle, sparkling silver and glinting under the colored glow of rotating lights. They looked like something out of a space-age Christmas, sleek and proud. They reflected the optimism of the decade, modern, bright, and unafraid to shine. Families gathered around as the color wheel spun slowly, washing the room in waves of red, green, and blue. Kids reached out to touch the branches, amazed at how cold and smooth they felt. Every family had one relative who swore by them, convinced they were cleaner, prettier, and more modern than the old green kind. Children would lie on the carpet just to watch the lights reflect across the ceiling like glittering snow. Decorating them felt different. No smell of pine, but the soft metallic whisper of tinsel instead. Ornaments shone brighter against the silver backdrop, and even simple bulbs looked extravagant. For some, it was the height of style. For others, a sign of the times, an age fascinated by the future. Even without scent or texture, they carried a sparkle that no real tree could rival. They were part of an era that loved glamour, efficiency, and imagination all at once. In their glow, the promise of tomorrow twinkled alongside the warmth of tradition. No matter the opinion, one thing was certain. Once that color wheel started spinning, Christmas had officially arrived. Homemade popcorn and cranberry garlands were the quiet crafts that filled long December nights. Before endless screen time and tangled lights, families gathered around the kitchen table with a bowl of popcorn, a spool of thread, and patience. Each string told a story, each bead a small act of care. Fingers pricked, popcorn crumbled, and cranberries rolled away, but laughter followed every mishap. The radio played softly, and someone always sang along while threading. It wasn't about perfection, it was about being together in the soft rhythm of creation. Children learned the rhythm of stitching, laughing when kernels broke, proud when their strings stretched across the tree. It was slow work, but that was the point. The stillness felt sacred, the soft chatter and warm lamplight turning the task into memory. The smell of butter and pine filled the air, and even if the garlands drooped or tangled, no one minded. They were proof of time spent together, of love stitched one kernel at a time. Every garland became a handmade memory, destined to outlast the season. The sight of them hanging against the tree lights made even the smallest home feel grand. They were not decorations, they were family woven into color and string. Hanging them on the tree meant more than decoration. It meant family, connection, and the beauty of effort made visible. Big bulb outdoor lights were the heartbeat of 1980s neighborhoods. Before sleek LEDs and synchronized displays, there were strands of giant glowing C9 bulbs strung across rooftops and fences. They hummed faintly, warm and imperfect, each bulb its own little sun in the cold night. You could hear the faint buzz as the lights warmed up, see the glow reflecting off icy driveways. Kids stood outside with mittens pressed to their mouths, watching their fathers staple each strand along the roofline. Every flick of the switch felt like unveiling a masterpiece to the neighborhood. Dads climbed icy ladders while kids held the extra bulbs, watching as color after color came to life. Some lights flickered, others burned too hot, but no one cared. The glow felt alive. When snow fell, it reflected the lights in every direction, turning whole streets into fairy tale scenes. You could drive block to block and see who went big that year, whose lights shone brightest. It was community pride mixed with childlike wonder. Neighbors competed playfully, borrowing bulbs or extension cords when needed. Families piled into cars just to drive around and admire the view, cocoa in hand. The lights didn't just decorate houses. They connected people, one glowing strand at a time. Those big bulbs didn't just light up homes. They lit up the spirit of Christmas itself, one glowing rooftop at a time. Yule log. Broadcast on television was comfort in its simplest form. For homes without fireplaces, the local TV station gave one that never went out. A single looping video of a crackling log burning slow and steady through Christmas Eve. The soft pop of the fire and the glow on the screen made living rooms feel warmer somehow. The picture never changed, but somehow it never got old. Families left it playing in the background, its gentle crackle mingling with laughter and the rustle of wrapping paper. In the dim light, the reflection of the fire shimmered on ornaments and glass, making every home feel cozy. Families left it on while wrapping gifts or eating dinner, the flicker of the fire filling the silence like company. It was background, yet essential, proof that peace could be found even in something so small. Some stations added holiday music, others let the quiet crackle do all the work. It didn't matter. For countless families, that simple loop of burning wood became a tradition, humble, timeless, and oddly human. It was a kind of quiet magic, a reminder that comfort didn't need to be real to be felt. The fire never dimmed, the ashes never fell, and still, it warmed hearts just the same. Long before streaming screensavers, this was the original glow of togetherness. In a world that moved fast, the Yule log stayed perfectly still, glowing with the same gentle peace year after year. Hallmark Christmas card exchanges were the social media of the 1980s, but with handwriting, heart, and a little glitter. Every December, families checked the mailbox with quiet excitement, waiting for envelopes covered in snowflake stamps and cursive names. Inside were smiling photos, typed updates, or handwritten notes from cousins, classmates, and long-lost friends. Mantels and door frames filled up fast, each card clipped to a ribbon or tucked between tinsel garlands. Mothers kept stacks of cards on the kitchen table, replying to each with perfect penmanship and a cup of cocoa by her side. The faint smell of ink, paper, and pine mixed with the hum of Christmas records in the background. It was a yearly ritual, each message a reminder that distance did not mean disconnection. Some cards came with sequins or pressed flowers, others with snapshots of families dressed in matching sweaters. Children loved opening them, pretending to recognize faces they hadn't seen in years. When the season ended, the cards went into shoe boxes instead of the trash. tiny time capsules of love and life. Every December, the first card to arrive made the house feel officially festive. Long before group texts and emails, Hallmark cards were proof that someone, somewhere, was thinking of you. TV variety. Christmas specials made every living room feel like the front row of a show. From Donnie and Marie Osmond's sparkling duets to Bob Hope's heartfelt jokes, these broadcasts turned holiday nights into small screen events. Families gathered together in pajamas, popcorn bowls ready, as familiar faces sang carols under glittering stage lights. The sets looked magical. Fake snow falling in perfect rhythm, choirs swaying behind big smiles, and stars dressed in sequins that caught the camera's glow. It was glitzy and sentimental all at once, a snapshot of show business wrapped in red and green. Parents adored the humor, kids waited for the songs, and everyone joined in when the finale rolled around. Dolly Parton could bring a tear to even the toughest dad with her soft Tennessee drawl and silver microphone. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a tradition, a reminder that Christmas could make everyone pause together for one shared hour. When the credits rolled, the warmth in the room lingered longer than the applause. Before streaming, these specials were the heartbeat of television Christmas, fleeting, festive, and full of charm. Bubble lights on Christmas trees were little tubes of magic, glowing like tiny lava lamps across the branches. Each bulb, filled with colored liquid, would come alive as the heat rose and bubbles began to dance inside. Kids would stare for minutes, mesmerized by their rhythm and sparkle. They weren't just decorations, they were living, glowing proof that the tree was awake. Every family had their favorite color, blue, red, or gold, and everyone knew not to touch them while they bubbled. They hummed softly in the darkened room, a hypnotic mix of science and Christmas wonder. Parents loved them for their retro charm, and children swore they were enchanted. Even though the cords tangled and a bulb would always refuse to work, no one cared. The glow they gave off felt warm and alive, different from any ordinary light. When the tree lights went out at night, the last few bubbles would rise, fade, and rest, like Christmas itself taking a breath before morning. They were fragile, fleeting, and unforgettable. Long before LED strings or flashing displays, bubble lights were a simple kind of magic that needed no batteries, only wonder. Candle carousels and spinning angels were delicate table treasures that whispered rather than shouted Christmas. A small flame beneath their silver wings made the angels spin, chiming a soft metallic song that danced through the quiet. The sound was so gentle that you had to stop talking just to hear it properly. It was the music of stillness, the kind that made children watch in awe and adults remember peace. The flicker of the candlelight shimmered on walls like halos moving in slow circles. Every family had one, sometimes passed down, sometimes bought at a church bazaar. You'd light it after dinner, the glow catching the gold of the angels as they turned above the table. The air filled with wax and warmth, the scent of pine and cinnamon close behind. It was fragile beauty, the kind that had to be handled carefully, but that fragility made it precious. Every spin felt like a tiny prayer that the season's calm would last a little longer. The candle carousel didn't fill a room, it filled a moment, and that was enough. Department store. Toyland sections were where dreams came alive in aisles of color and noise. Before online wish lists, children walked through entire floors of wonder. Trains circling snowy villages, dolls blinking from behind glass, action figures lined like tiny soldiers ready for Christmas duty. Escalators opened onto pure magic. The sound was its own kind of music. Bells, laughter, and toy demos echoing under the bright lights. Kids tugged their parents' sleeves, pointing to every shelf, their eyes wide as if the North Pole had landed downtown. Parents pretended to browse but secretly took notes, remembering which toy earned the biggest smile. Store clerks in red vests wrapped gifts behind the counter, while artificial snow fell from the ceiling displays. Even the air felt different, warm from crowds and electric with excitement. No screen could ever recreate the feeling of walking through that Toyland glow. When the doors closed for the night, the store stayed alive in children's imaginations until Christmas morning. Homemade felt stockings with sequins were labors of love that hung proudly from mantles. Each one told a story, stitched by hand, decorated with glue and glitter, buttons for eyes, and yarn for names. They weren't bought, they were built, piece by piece, often around the kitchen table. Mothers snipped fabric scraps from old clothes, turning them into something bright and personal. Children helped, scattering sequins across the floor like tiny stars. The stockings weren't perfect, but that made them beautiful. Some had snowmen, others reindeer, some just a name stitched crooked in red thread. They were light, soft, and warm to the touch, filled with small gifts and candy canes that made Christmas morning shimmer. Even when the seams came loose or the colors faded, no one could throw them away. Each stitch held the sound of laughter and the smell of cookies baking in the next room. Today's store-bought stockings look clean and precise, but they can't hold the heartbeat sewn into those homemade ones. Decorating with cotton snow and spray frost turned ordinary homes into dreamy winter scenes. Windows glistened with fake frost, and tabletops disappeared under fluffy white cotton that looked just enough like snow to make you believe. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. It was Christmas magic on a budget. Children helped stretch out the cotton, tucking it around nativity scenes and toy trains. A few sprays from the frost can transform glass into icy wonder, the edges sparkling in the morning sun. Parents loved how simple it was, how a little creativity could turn the living room into a winter postcard. The smell of aerosol frost hung in the air, blending with pine and cinnamon from nearby candles. When the lights came on at night, the cotton caught every glow and turned it into sparkle. It didn't melt, didn't fade. It just stayed, soft and pure, until New Year's Day. Those cotton landscapes made even warm weather homes feel like the North Pole, one stretch of fluff at a time. Holiday punch bowls and cheese balls were the twin stars of every grown-up Christmas party. In kitchens across America, tables gleamed under the light of cut glass bowls filled with ruby red punch floating with slices of orange. Nearby, cheese balls rolled in nuts, or parsley sat proudly beside stacks of Ritz crackers. The smell was rich, savory, and sweet all at once, and every adult had their own secret recipe. Laughter grew louder with each refill, stories grew taller, and someone always spilled just a little on the tablecloth. Kids peeked in from the hallway, stealing crackers before running off again. These gatherings were more than parties. They were annual reunions, proof that friendship could be as warm as the punch itself. Even now, the sight of that silver ladle or the taste of cheddar mixed with cream cheese can bring the past rushing back. It wasn't about sophistication, it was about celebration, plain and true. The clink of glasses, the glow of the tree, the hum of old records. Together they made the room feel like Christmas itself. Neighborhood caroling groups were a soundtrack to small-town Decembers. Kids in puffy parkas and knitted hats trudged door to door, clutching song sheets and lanterns that flickered in the cold. Their breath turned to mist as they sang Silent Night under streetlights and porch bulbs. Behind every door was a family smiling, handing out cookies, cocoa, or coins for the effort. The harmonies weren't perfect, but the joy was. Caroling was never about talent. It was about courage, kindness, and connection. Parents followed behind with thermoses of coffee, whispering reminders to stay together on icy sidewalks. Neighbors waved from windows, listening to the faint sound of singing travel down the block. By the end of the night, noses were red, gloves were damp, but spirits glowed like the lights overhead. In those small voices was something bigger than tradition. It was togetherness, plain and beautiful. Today, that sound is rare, but those who remember it can still feel its warmth echoing in the cold. Homemade fudge and divinity candy were the edible treasures of the season. Pots clattered, spoons stirred, and sugar clouds filled the kitchen with the scent of patience. Grandmothers stood watch like generals of sweetness, stirring just long enough for the fudge to thicken or the divinity to hold its shape. Every batch felt like alchemy, boiling sugar, butter, and cocoa transforming into something smooth and rich. A good batch was gold. A bad one meant starting over, but no one complained. It was a labor of love, not convenience. Wax paper lined the counters, cooling the treats before they were wrapped in ribbons or tucked into tins for neighbors. Children were allowed to lick the spoons, the taste warm and sugary and perfect. When shared, it wasn't just candy. It was affection that could be held in your hand. Those recipes were family heirlooms, passed on with smudged cards and whispered instructions. Even today, the first bite of homemade fudge still tastes like a memory that never stopped being sweet. Parade TV, watching on Christmas morning, was the calm before the storm. The quiet moment when the whole family gathered together, still in pajamas, before the sound of tearing wrapping paper filled the house. The television flickered with color as floats from the Disney Christmas parade glided down Main Street, Mickey and Minnie waving through clouds of fake snow. Children leaned forward, half eating breakfast, half dreaming of being there in person, while parents sipped coffee and let the warmth of the morning sink in. The brass bands played carols that seemed to echo through the room, and Disney characters danced with precision that felt impossibly perfect. Every float was a moving painting, shimmering tinsel, waving princesses, candy canes taller than cars. For 1 hour, the living room turned into the happiest place on earth. When Santa appeared at the end, it felt like the signal. Now Christmas had truly begun. Some families kept the parade on in the background while gifts were passed around, the announcers' cheerful voices mingling with laughter and the rustle of wrapping paper. Others made it a ritual, no gifts until Santa's sleigh appeared on screen. It wasn't just a parade, it was a rhythm, the heartbeat of a generation's Christmas morning. The glow of the television matched the glow of the tree, and for a while, the world outside disappeared. Watching the parade meant something simple but sacred. Family, together, beginning the day in wonder before the chaos of joy took over. VHS recordings of holiday specials were the 1980s version of streaming magic, a fragile kind of immortality trapped on a black plastic tape. Parents would hover by the VCR, ready to hit record at just the right moment as Frosty the Snowman or A Charlie Brown Christmas aired on television. The commercials were half the charm, jingles that announced the season as clearly as any song. The whirring sound of the tape starting, the glow of the red record light, it all felt like ceremony. One mistake, and you could tape over a wedding or birthday. But somehow, that risk made it special. Kids would beg to rewind the same specials again and again, the images growing softer, the sound a little fuzzier with every year. Each tape had its own handwriting on the label. Christmas 1986 or Santa shows, written in marker that slowly faded over time. When the VCR chewed up the tape, hearts sank like snow melting in rain. But for as long as it lasted, those recordings were pure magic, unchanging even as everything else grew up. Sitting cross-legged on the carpet, a bowl of popcorn in your lap, you could press play and step straight into the same snow globe world of Christmas that never aged, never changed. The static hum at the beginning was the sound of nostalgia being born. Family slide. Projector nights turned living rooms into theaters of memory. After dinner, when plates were cleared and lights dimmed, someone would set up the bulky projector on a folding table, threading the carousel of slides with care. Then came the first whir, the soft mechanical hum that filled the quiet. A click, and suddenly the wall came to life with last year's Christmas morning frozen in light. Children in mismatched pajamas grinning through missing teeth, grandparents laughing behind wrapping paper, dogs caught mid-leap, all immortalized in tiny film squares. It wasn't just looking back, it was time travel. Parents narrated the slides like storytellers, teasing each other about hairstyles or outfits, while kids giggled at how small they once were. The smell of the warm projector bulb mixed with the scent of coffee and leftover pie. Every click brought laughter, sometimes a hush, sometimes a sigh. When a slide got stuck, the pause was part of the charm. It gave everyone a second to remember more deeply. No one scrolled or swiped. The pictures moved at the pace of heartbeats, one at a time. The sound of that old machine became the soundtrack to family history. By the end of the night, Faces blurred into smiles, and the projector's light faded out like a memory putting itself gently to bed. Classic toy commercial marathons were the unofficial countdown to Christmas morning. Between every cartoon or holiday special, the screen burst into a parade of colors, jingles, and shouting narrators selling dreams. Transformers, My Little Pony, Light Bright, Teddy Ruxpin. Each one announced with booming excitement and flashing lights. Children sat inches from the screen, memorizing every second, their imaginations firing faster than the commercials could roll. Parents rolled their eyes but smiled. They knew the wish lists would grow by the minute. These ads weren't just marketing, they were storytelling. Tiny worlds built in 30 seconds, promising happiness inside a cardboard box. The music was catchy enough to live in your head until January. The announcers spoke with a kind of authority that made every toy sound like treasure. Even the static between commercials felt like anticipation, a deep breath before the next wave of wonder. And when the same ad returned for the 5th time, it didn't matter. It only meant Christmas was getting closer. The television glowed like an altar of imagination, its light reflecting off tinsel and toys that hadn't yet been unwrapped. Those commercials didn't just sell toys. They sold the feeling of childhood itself, and for 1 month every year, the entire country bought in with joy. Christmas Eve. Church pageants were the soul of the season, humble, heartfelt, and unforgettable. Every December, candlelit sanctuaries filled with the soft shuffle of children dressed as shepherds, angels, and wise men. Mothers pinned wings made of cardboard and tinsel, while fathers adjusted robes made from old sheets. Backstage, nervous giggles mixed with the scent of candle wax and evergreen. The church organ hummed, and when the first hymn began, every voice, cracked or clear, joined in reverence. The nativity story came to life through crooked halos and tiny hands clutching stuffed lambs. Some lines were forgotten, others whispered too quietly to hear, but that never mattered. The glow from candles reflected in every child's eyes, and parents watched through tears they didn't try to hide. When the baby Jesus doll was laid in the manger, the room always seemed to pause. The world, for that one moment, felt gentle and still. Afterward, there was applause, cookies in the fellowship hall, and hugs from every direction. Outside, the cold bit hard, but the warmth from the sanctuary lingered. These pageants weren't about perfection. They were about belonging, about reminding everyone that the story still mattered, and that it could be told by voices still learning the words. When the candles dimmed and families stepped into the night, the air carried something sacred, something that whispered softly, "Peace on earth, goodwill to all." Stringing big bulb, C9 lights on the house was a winter ritual that turned entire neighborhoods into glowing wonderlands. These oversized, colorful bulbs were heavy, hot to the touch, and notoriously finicky. But when they lit up, they were breathtaking. Dads would climb icy ladders, stringing them across eaves and around porches, while kids shouted directions from below. Every year, there was at least one broken bulb and one argument about which color should go where, but no one cared once the switch was flipped. Neighbors competed quietly to see whose house shone brightest, creating an unspoken bond through light. And when the first snow fell, those glowing bulbs reflected off the white drifts, making the whole street look like a postcard brought to life. The smell of cold air and electric warmth filled the night as each bulb blinked to life. Those lights gave every home a sense of pride, as if to say, "We made it through another year." Even when one burned out and ruined the whole strand, no one minded too much. It was part of the process. The glow of red, green, blue, and amber bulbs on a snowy night made even the simplest house feel magical. Today's LEDs might be easier, but they can't match that warm, nostalgic glow that once lit up entire childhoods. The Easy Bake Oven turned playtime into culinary confidence, one light bulb cake at a time. It was the perfect mix of fun, independence, and sugar. Every little chef who slid that tiny pan into the glowing oven felt like they were creating something truly special. The smell of warm chocolate or vanilla drifting from that small machine filled the house with excitement. Parents might have laughed, but for kids, it was serious business. You measured, mixed, and waited, because good things, even tiny ones, took time. The best part was sharing the results, however uneven or overbaked they might have been. The Easy Bake Oven was more than a toy. It was a gateway to creativity, teaching patience, pride, and the joy of giving. Under the Christmas tree, it represented possibility, a promise that even the smallest hands could make something magical. And for many kids, it was the first taste of independence, a moment where they were not just playing pretend, they were baking for real. Disco was not just music, it was movement, the kind that pulsed through your chest and told your body to rise. In the 1970s, disco swept through clubs, airwaves, and teenage bedrooms with a glittering swagger. The Bee Gees, Donna Summer, Chic. Their beats became the background to breakups, makeouts, and Friday nights that never wanted to end. Disco was light in the darkness. It was escapism with a beat. Under mirrored balls and strobe lights, people forgot their troubles and danced like the world would never stop spinning. And for a while, it did not. Disco was inclusive. Black, brown, white, gay, straight, everyone could find themselves in the rhythm. It was the sound of unity, even if just for one night. It was freedom in 4-on-the-floor time. Parents called it noise. Politicians mocked it. But young people knew better. They knew disco was more than polyester and falsetto. It was the right to feel good, to be seen, to take up space. And when the backlash came, when disco records were burned and mocked, it felt like something sacred was being stolen. But the beat never really stopped. It just went underground. And in quiet corners of memory, it still plays, waiting for you to dance again. Every October morning in the 1980s began with a sugary bowl of Monster cereal. Count Chocula, Boo Berry, and Frankenberry ruled breakfast tables with their pastel marshmallows and spooky mascots. But it was not just the cereal that mattered. It was the box. Kids would flip it over and see cutout masks, monster puzzles, or glow-in-the-dark stickers that made breakfast feel like a mini adventure. Some boxes even came with mail-in offers for collectible toys or posters if you sent in enough box tops. Saturday mornings were spent with milk-stained scissors, cutting out masks that never fit quite right but made you feel like part of the monster crew. These cereal promotions blended sugar, marketing genius, and pure childhood magic. The monsters were not scary. They were funny, friendly, and just the right kind of spooky for kids who were too young for real horror movies. Even the jingles stuck in your head long after Halloween ended. Looking back, it was the perfect mix of fun and flavor. Breakfast that doubled as a costume factory. Aluminum and tinsel Christmas trees brought a futuristic shimmer to living rooms across America. Those shiny silver branches reflected every bit of light in the room, turning simple colored bulbs into something almost cosmic. Some families paired them with rotating color wheels, bathing their trees in slow, dreamy waves of red, blue, green, and gold. Kids would sit cross-legged on shag carpets, their eyes wide as the colors shifted like magic right before them. Parents would sip coffee and smile, knowing that even this space-age tree somehow captured the same old-fashioned joy. And when guests visited, everyone had the same reaction. Astonishment followed by the quiet admission that maybe the future really could sparkle. It was the 70s version of glamour. Artificial, sure, but beautiful in its own unapologetic way. The sound of wrapping paper and Perry Como on vinyl mixed perfectly with the soft whir of the motorized light wheel. Decorating those metallic trees was less about tradition and more about style, but somehow they still captured the spirit of the season. Every glint off a tinsel branch reminded people that the holidays could still feel bright even when times were tight. They might look kitschy now, but back then they were pure magic, an explosion of color in homes that needed a little sparkle. Before tablets and touchscreens, there was Light Bright, a glowing window into imagination. The moment the lights turned off and those colored pegs clicked into place, magic happened. You were not just drawing, you were illuminating your own little world. It was more than an art project. It was an experience of wonder, that quiet hum of creativity glowing in a darkened room. Each design felt personal, a secret piece of light that belonged only to you. Kids would spend hours creating glowing rockets, flowers, and holiday scenes, each design brighter and more personal than the last. The gentle hum of the light bulb inside became the soundtrack to quiet concentration. Parents loved it because it was creative, but kids loved it because it felt endless. No two nights with Light Bright ever looked the same. The smell of warm plastic and the glow of rainbow dots on the wall became part of growing up in the 1970s. It was art that shined, literally. It made you feel like you were creating something that mattered, something worth turning off the lights for. The satisfaction of pulling out each peg and starting again was pure, innocent joy. In a time when technology was still a novelty, Light Bright made electricity feel like magic, and creativity feel limitless. Charlie's Angels was not just a television show, it was a cultural awakening in bell-bottoms and feathered hair. In an era when women were still fighting for equal footing, this trio of private detectives kicked down the door with high heels and high style. Sabrina, Jill, and Kelly were not sidekicks, they were the stars, and every week, millions tuned in to watch them outsmart villains, fight crime, and still look flawless. It was action, it was glamour, and for a lot of young girls, it was a revelation. These women were strong, smart, dangerous, and they did it all without needing permission. They were not waiting to be rescued. They were the ones doing the rescuing. For boys, it was a crush. For girls, it was a blueprint. Watching them felt like seeing the future, one where women were just as bold and capable as anyone else. Yes, the show was campy. Yes, it leaned hard into style, but underneath the glossy surface was something powerful: representation. Every time the Angels walked into danger with confidence, another crack formed in the glass ceiling. And for the kids growing up in the 1970s, those cracks mattered. They signaled that maybe, just maybe, the world was changing. By the mid-1980s, rumors about poisoned candy and hidden razor blades had parents terrified. That is why local police stations and fire departments began offering safety check events where kids could get their candy x-rayed. It sounds extreme now, but back then it was comforting to see uniformed officers dumping your plastic pumpkin onto a metal table. The whirring of the machine and the click of buttons made the whole process feel official, almost like a spy mission. Kids would wait anxiously for their candy to come out clean, cheering when their stash passed the test. Sometimes an officer would sneak a piece of candy and wink, reminding everyone that Halloween was supposed to be fun, not frightening. You would watch the candy pass through the machine like treasure through airport security, and once it was cleared, it somehow tasted better. The event turned fear into community. Flashing lights, parents chatting, kids showing off costumes under the station's bright fluorescence. No one ever actually found anything dangerous, but that was not the point. It was about reassurance, about the idea that everyone was looking out for each other. The poisoned candy panic may have been overblown, but it created one of the most unique traditions of 1980s Halloween, one that mixed caution with comfort. Claymation and stop-motion television specials were more than just cartoons. They were emotional landmarks of the decade. Every December, families gathered around wood-paneled televisions to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and The Year Without a Santa Claus. The jerky motion, hand-built sets, and warm narration gave these specials a charm that modern animation could never replace. Kids knew the songs by heart, and parents watched with a mix of nostalgia and comfort, remembering the same stories from their own youth. These weren't just TV shows. They were shared rituals that glued generations together. When that familiar Rankin/Bass logo appeared, the world seemed to slow down for an hour of pure holiday magic. It wasn't just about Santa or snow, it was about the feeling of belonging, the promise that kindness and faith would always win. Somehow, even with the primitive technology, they felt more alive than most things on television today. The Simon electronic memory game looked like something from the future when it first appeared. Circular, glowing, and armed with hypnotic tones, it was part challenge, part trance. You would press those colored pads, red, blue, green, yellow, each beat pulling you deeper into the rhythm of concentration and excitement. The tension would build with every new sequence, fingers hovering over the lights as the room fell silent, except for those iconic tones. And when you finally beat your high score, that surge of pride felt like conquering a machine straight out of science fiction. It was a battle between memory and nerves, between calm focus and the inevitable moment you pressed the wrong light. The sound of failure, a harsh buzz, was unforgettable, but so was the pride of getting it right. In a world before smartphones, Simon was the first real taste of interactive technology that felt alive. Families gathered around, cheering each other on, competing to see who could go one step further. The flashing lights and catchy sounds filled the room with energy that was both competitive and communal. It taught patience, focus, and the thrill of victory, one sequence at a time. Even today, those tones echo in memory, a perfect reminder of when high-tech meant 4 colored buttons and a handful of hope. They were not just jewelry. They were emotion captured in metal, worn like a secret code on your finger. Mood rings did not just change color. They whispered things you were too young to say out loud. When you slipped one on, it felt like magic. Blue meant calm, green meant normal. Black, well, no one wanted to see black. The science behind it was simple, but no one cared. In the 1970s, the idea that your feelings could show themselves in color felt like truth. These rings were traded like treasures on the schoolyard. You watched your crush's ring for signs. You checked your own to see if it matched your mood, or maybe told you what mood you should be in. It made your hands feel important, as if something hidden inside you finally had a way out. Kids compared colors, speculated meanings, and even blamed the ring for their temper or shyness. It was all play, but it meant everything. Adults wore them too, sometimes seriously, as if their stress and calm could be measured like temperature. Mood rings promised answers. They gave shape to confusion and mood swings and heart flutters. They made your emotions visible, even when you could not find the words. Today, we track our health with digital watches and screens, but nothing feels quite as mystical as a little color-changing stone that said, without saying, "You feel something, and that matters." Every kid in the 1980s wanted one thing from McDonald's in October: the Halloween pail. Those orange, white, or green buckets shaped like pumpkins, ghosts, or witches were more than Happy Meal containers. They were trophies. Each year, the designs changed just enough to make you beg your parents for the new one. Kids proudly carried them around, using them for candy, crayons, or even as lunchboxes long after Halloween was over. The smell of McDonald's fries mixed with the excitement of choosing between McPumpkin, McBoo, or McGoblin was a ritual of its own. You did not just eat your Happy Meal, you earned your pail. It was sturdy enough to survive multiple Halloweens, which made it feel like a real treasure in a decade full of disposable toys. Those smiling pumpkin faces glowing under streetlights are burned into memory, a reminder of a time when one plastic bucket could define an entire season. For many of us, the McDonald's Halloween pail was the only trick-or-treating gear we ever needed, and we carried it proudly until the handle snapped. Sears and JCPenney Christmas catalogs, better known as the Wish Books, were the highlight of every holiday season. Long before online shopping, kids would lie belly down on the living room carpet, circling their dream toys in red crayon while parents quietly made notes on the other pages. It was more than a catalog. It was a gateway to imagination, a tradition that turned every home into a small department store of hope. You could almost smell the glossy pages and the faint ink that carried the promise of Christmas morning. Parents might not have been able to buy everything, but flipping through those pages together made the dream feel real enough. The anticipation that came from waiting weeks, sometimes months, for that special toy to appear under the tree was half the fun. For many families, the arrival of that thick catalog in the mail meant Christmas had officially begun. It was the season's first miracle, delivered right to your doorstep. Barbie's Country Camper was the dream machine every child wanted parked under the Christmas tree in the 1970s. It was more than a toy. It was freedom on 4 wheels, perfectly sized for Barbie's next big adventure. Painted in bright, cheerful orange with sunny flower decals, it captured the spirit of a decade obsessed with travel, independence, and style. Kids could imagine Barbie hitting the open road, setting up camp by a cardboard lake, or hosting a groovy cookout with her friends under a paper sun. The camper had it all: fold-out chairs, tiny sleeping bags, and even a pretend kitchenette. It was the perfect symbol of the era's optimism: bold, colorful, and ready for the unknown. For little girls across America, it was a glimpse into a grown-up world of freedom and self-expression, where you could go anywhere and be anything. Barbie wasn't waiting for Prince Charming. She was driving herself across the country, and everyone was invited. The country camper made imagination feel like a lifestyle, and it turned backyards into national parks. Every time the camper doors swung open, it whispered the same promise to its young owner: adventure is just around the bend. It was not just a haircut, it was a statement, a flag of coolness raised high across school hallways and roller rinks. In the 1970s, feathered hair took over like wildfire, cascading down the backs and shoulders of teenagers who wanted to look like they belonged in a magazine. The look was all about movement: soft, layered waves flipped away from the face, floating like wings. It was not stiff. It was not prime. It was wild and controlled at the same time. Farrah Fawcett's poster lived on thousands of bedroom walls, her hair practically glowing like a halo. Boys copied it too, feathering crossed lines, making it one of the first unisex styles to sweep American youth. Getting the look right took time, patience, and enough hairspray to knock out a small bug. You needed a round brush, a blow dryer, and some serious dedication. But once it was done, it felt like you had joined something, a club of effortless beauty and breezy confidence. Teachers hated it. Parents did not get it. But your friends? They noticed. They knew. Feathered hair was not about vanity. It was about identity. You were telling the world you had style, that you were paying attention, that you were here. And when the wind caught it just right, flipping it behind your ears like a scene from a movie, that was your moment. The kind you still remember every time a gust hits your face. No 1980s. Halloween was complete without a spooky sound effect cassette. You could buy them at Radio Shack, Kmart, or the local drugstore, each promising to turn your living room into a haunted mansion. The tapes were filled with endless loops of creaking doors, howling wolves, thunderclaps, and distant screams. You could always tell which house had one playing. The sound spilled out onto the street, luring kids closer like a siren. Some tapes even had scratchy narration, adding a ghostly story that made your imagination run wild. The occasional tape jam only made it better, warping the sounds into something even creepier. Parents would press play on an old cassette deck and hide it behind a curtain, letting the sounds echo through the house. The low hiss of the tape added an eerie realism that no streaming playlist can match today. Kids tried to talk over it during parties, but the sudden shrieks always made someone jump. These cheap cassettes were the soundtrack of every backyard haunt, every garage maze, every night of pillowcase candy halls. The fact that it was just a tape made it feel like a secret power. You could summon fear with the push of a button. It was do-it-yourself horror at its finest, the heartbeat of a decade that loved making its own fun. Visiting the local shopping mall, Santa was a sacred family outing. Parents dressed their kids in itchy sweaters, combed their hair perfectly, and lined up for what felt like hours just to get a Polaroid with the big man himself. The Santas might have had cottony fake beards and slightly tired eyes, but to the children, they were as real as could be. Some kids froze completely, staring in awe, while others burst into tears the second they were lifted onto Santa's lap. Parents laughed through it all, clutching shopping bags filled with toys they swore were from the elves. And when that warm, slightly blurry photo slid out of the camera, it became proof that Christmas magic was real, at least for one more year. Malls transformed into glowing wonderlands of fake snow, candy canes, and jingling soundtracks that played on endless loops. For many families, that one photo on Santa's lap captured a moment of pure childhood belief, a look of awe that could never be replicated. The scent of pretzels and cinnamon sugar in the air made everything feel bigger, brighter, and completely magical. Even when the photos came out overexposed or crooked, they became treasures, taped to refrigerators or tucked into family albums. That visit to Santa wasn't just a picture. It was a promise that Christmas dreams were still possible. The Brady Bunch was not just a sitcom. It was a mirror held up to a hopeful America, one that wanted to believe that everything broken could be blended. A widow with 3 sons, a widower with 3 daughters. Together, they made a perfect mess of a family. For children of the 1970s, this show was more than after-school television. It was comfort. It was order. It was the dream of getting along even when everything changed. You saw yourself in Jan's jealousy, Greg's swagger, or Cindy's innocence. The shag carpet, the avocado kitchen, the tic-tac-toe lawn, it was all so vivid, it practically lived in your memory. It made divorce and remarriage look easy, even fun. It was not about realism, it was about possibility. The show taught you how to talk through feelings, even if the solutions were wrapped up neatly in 25 minutes. It taught you that families were not defined by blood, but by how hard you were willing to try. You sang along with the theme song like it was scripture. You knew that no matter the problem, school, dating, hair, there was always a resolution. It made growing up feel a little less scary, and when you look back now, maybe it was too perfect. But in a world that often felt messy, the Brady house gave you a place to believe that everything, somehow, could work out. When store-bought costumes sold out or money was tight, parents got creative with trash bags. One black garbage bag, a pair of scissors, and some orange tape could turn any kid into a witch, ghost, or superhero. It was quick, cheap, and surprisingly fun to make. The sound of the bag rustling was part of the costume itself. Every step crinkled like thunder. Kids would parade around the living room, proud of their shiny new outfits, while parents pretended not to laugh. A little creativity and a roll of duct tape could turn any kitchen into a costume factory. The smell of fresh plastic filled the kitchen as parents cut armholes and kids argued about who got the shiny bag. A little construction paper and a marker could transform a recycling bin into a costume workshop. Sure, it crinkled when you moved, and the static cling was unbearable, but no one cared. The pride of making your own costume was part of the fun. Plus, if it rained, you were already waterproof. Homemade trash bag costumes were the ultimate symbol of 1980s ingenuity. Messy, last minute, and completely unforgettable. Homemade popcorn and cranberry garlands were the perfect family craft for the long December evenings. Parents set out bowls of popcorn, strings, and needles while the kids giggled at how hard it was to thread each piece without breaking it. The sweet and tart scent of cranberries mixed with the buttery smell of popcorn, filling the room with the kind of aroma that no candle could ever fake. Every family had its own method. Some made neat alternating patterns, while others ended up with chaotic strings that looked like abstract art. Fingers got pricked, popcorn got eaten faster than it was strung, and the dog usually stole a handful when no one was looking. But when the final garland hung from the tree, everyone stood back in quiet pride, knowing they had made something beautiful together. It was messy, imperfect, and a little chaotic, but it brought families together like few things could. These garlands draped over trees, mantels, and doorways, each one unique to the hands that made it. Even when the popcorn went stale, no one cared. It was the memory that mattered. There was a quiet pride in standing back and seeing your family's handiwork decorating the home. In a decade filled with store-bought tinsel and plastic ornaments, this small act of creating something by hand still carried the truest Christmas spirit. By the early 1970s, G.I. Joe had grown a beard, traded his army fatigues for adventure gear, and become the G.I. Joe Adventure Team. He was no longer just a soldier. He was an explorer, scientist, and hero of the natural world. Kids could send him on missions to jungles, deserts, and oceans, all without leaving the carpet. The new line of vehicles, scuba suits, and gear sets turned bedrooms into secret bases. Every accessory had purpose: tiny ropes, plastic binoculars, and a working winch that made kids feel like they were part of an expedition. The toys' realism gave power to their imagination, making every play session feel like a discovery. The Adventure Team slogan, The adventure team is ready for action was not just marketing, it was a rallying cry for imagination. Parents appreciated its wholesome shift away from war, while kids loved the sense of freedom it offered. You could make up your own stories, and the only rule was that G.I. Joe always saved the day. The fuzzy hair, kung fu grip, and detailed accessories made him feel almost alive. He was a reflection of a changing America, curious, courageous, and always moving forward. The G.I. Joe adventure team showed that adventure did not need battlefields. Sometimes the biggest mission started right at home. Which of these forgotten 1980s Christmas traditions still glows in your memory? Share your favorite in the comments, tap like to keep the nostalgia shining, and subscribe so we can unwrap more memories together next time.